Hi, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of October 26, 2020. In terms of the stock market direction, my predictions, as posted on Tolstunka.com, were that for Monday and Tuesday the market will go up, and then Wednesday through Friday the market will go down. By market, I mean primarily Nasdaq and Dow Jones. I'm recording this video on Tuesday afternoon, so I actually did see that on Monday, on the 26th, there was a fairly large drop, and then on Tuesday the market was mixed, where Nasdaq went up and Dow Jones went down. Again, I think that for the rest of the week the market will continue to go down overall. In terms of the important highlights for every day of the week, for Monday, I did see that for the US, there might be some positive news regarding either earnings, workforce, or healthcare, and that would be in the morning. I honestly can't remember if there were any such news or not. I didn't really follow the news that much, but that's what I saw in terms of transits. For Tuesday, again, in terms of transits for US, things look good in terms of the international relations or news regarding various laws or long distance transportation, shipments, travel, and that would indicate that perhaps any ongoing communication regarding those areas or deals would go through, that the travel would occur smoothly, or if there was a shipment waiting basically on some sort of permission or law, it would go through. Of course, on Monday night there was news about the new Supreme Court justice being confirmed, so that would also fall under, this kind of a transit where, again, things are moving smoothly in terms of these kind of these domains for the US. Then for China, the period from October 27th through, I would say, around November 2nd, and especially the very end of October, so October 29th and through 31st, may see increased news about things like oil, various chemicals, navy, pollution, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, but also anything to do with like secret, hidden things, deceptive things. So we may hear more in the news about sort of related topics, and also there may be some important announcement where perhaps the country initiates some sort of a new initiative or new project where they would pursue increase of their earnings or increase profits in a more aggressive, risky way. So perhaps some new financial policy may be announced, or again, there may be some greater kind of risk taken in terms of perhaps investments or something that is being pursued a little bit more aggressively than usual. This general focus on oil, chemicals, navy, etc., as like I said, that will come sort of more strongly at the end of October, early November, will actually continue in the upcoming even several months, and it will continue kind of building up and may peak around November 6th through 16th, which both can see, again, some news coming out of China regarding, again, either navy, ships, any sort of transportation over water, or dealing with pollution, chemicals, as well as pharmaceuticals, etc. And at the same time, there may also be some increasing problems there where perhaps could be related to floods, again, pollution, or even some disasters that again lead to some either pollution or some problems that will require cleanup. And of course, in the process, some information may be suppressed, or vice versa. Things that have been suppressed before or literally hidden, buried underground, may now float to the top, literally or figuratively, and again will require some cleanup. And this week we may start kind of seeing a buildup in that area, but in November especially, I'd say November, like I said, 6th through the 16th, this energy for China may peak. For Wednesday, other than my prediction of it being a down day, I think for US, 28th through 30th of October may see increased and potentially minor negative news regarding earnings, workforce, and healthcare. So perhaps lower profits or reduced benefits for workers, or no, if there was an expectation of some aid coming through to help those who were like jobless, this may not necessarily happen at this time. Maybe reduce spending on some of the initiatives, again, to help workers, or if there was a trial of some vaccine or something going on at this time, 20th or 30th of October for US, it may not necessarily go well. Then the 29th, globally, market down, but also increased news about either international relations, especially anything to do with like military alliances, weapons sales, also laws, judges, long distance transportation or travel. So there may be, if there are ongoing conflicts internationally, at this time there may be escalation or increased arguments about, one side may accuse another side of basically being too aggressive or engaging in some military activities, and there may be arguments over that, or again, some skirmishes. There might be international lawsuits where one side goes, to court to try to, basically blame somebody for something. And also it may lead to some problems with, again, of course, travel and shipments because of this instability. And that's for Thursday, the 29th. For this week, Friday, the 30th will probably be the most significant day, maybe Saturday as well, but in terms of the actual work days. So we may see the strongest, market moves, I would say, on Friday, even though Monday already we saw a fairly large drop. But actually, in terms of transits, Friday looks like the most significant day of the week. And at that time, there may be continuing, like I said, skirmishes, some problems for international partnerships where people who are, or entities who are in the alliance, they may be perhaps having some arguments or negotiations where negotiations are delayed or don't go as well. The deal is stalled, or there might be some arguments. At this time, at the end of the week, the arguments becoming more and more heated. If the arguments themselves are not heated, then those deals, those negotiations may have to do specifically with military alliances, weapons, or any kind of a risky sort of deals. And most likely, if there's anything that's being negotiated at the end of October, it may not go through until around November 9th. And these talks, they may continue to be kind of like somewhat escalated or not go well. And maybe around the 6th, which is the Friday, 6th of November, which is the Friday, there may be some peak, I would say, either tensions or sort of a breaking point. And then finally, maybe on the 9th, Monday, things may either be resolved, or at least parties may be willing to finally sit down and start discussing things more calmly. So the 30th and 31st of October, Friday, Saturday, may see generally globally increased news about finance or rates, loans, taxes, currencies. There might be increased focus on those areas, and the news could be stressful. Cryptocurrencies, their value may fluctuate more than usual, and there's also an increased probability of some surprising event related to, again, cryptocurrencies. Also areas like IT, electric cars, telecommunications, social media, electric cars, power plants, airspace, airlines. So in those areas, there may be either outages, maybe intermittent power outages, service outages, or some surprising developments. Maybe something, some project is abruptly canceled, or something suddenly begins, maybe too early. Or again, there's some surprises, and most likely it will be related to finance, or perhaps earnings are higher or lower than expected, or maybe some surprising announcements about debt, taxes, loans, etc. There was an announcement today, I guess, about like a really record Bitcoin. What is it? The basically announcement about some sort of mystery crypto whale moving over 1.1 billion in Bitcoin. And so this was already on Tuesday, and I think on Friday, Saturday, I'm not sure if there will be a follow-up to this or something along the same lines, or again, something that's going to be a surprise and larger than usual sort of event. But it may also relate to, like I said, airspace, airlines, electric cars, etc. And let's see, and then for the US, the 30th October seems like a day where, again, there may be increased news about finance, banks, earnings. However, at this time, the news may be somewhat negative or concerning, where maybe like I said, profits are less than expected, some deal is not going to go through, or perhaps negotiations are kind of just being seen as unproductive, and so this may put some damper on the market. In terms of what's upcoming, and rather what is the kind of a background influence for this week, we have, of course, this influence that has been with us since, I would say, last year and will continue through the end of this year, that typically coincides with large-scale pandemics, but also changes in like governmental structures, removal of leaders, geopolitical changes, etc., and also large-scale disasters, earthquakes. And this week, the strongest days with this kind of energy for this week are 29th through 31st. Then specifically for the US, this sort of the entire month of October almost, but certainly through the end of October, we may see potentially announcements that have to do with either important announcements that have to do with either military or sports or risky type businesses, which is of course the stock market, also casinos, any entertainment businesses. So there may be some either escalations of arguments, escalations of in negotiations, or perhaps an announcement again about like casinos or maybe even entertainment venues like concert halls, or so something may happen, or there's a greater than usual probability where either an event occurs in those kind of places, that it may be either somewhat more risky or somewhat more dangerous, or somebody perhaps does something brave, where something that was there was a risky situation and somebody maybe saves somebody at such a venue, or there is an act of some bravery, like some athlete does something noteworthy. For China, starting from about October 24th through December 8th, and especially at the very end of October, so the 29th, and then November 27th through 28th, may see important public kind of announcements or announcements that affect large numbers of people that have to do with finance, earnings, banks, currencies, loans, rates, etc. And that may have to do again with kind of maybe policy to pursue greater earnings through maybe more risky or more aggressive kind of moves, and maybe establish dominant position in the world in terms of like financial power, and or announcement about some ambitious new project, again with the aim of increasing earnings. And it could either be this one project broken down into phases. So phase one occurs at the end of October, and then there's a follow-up at the end of November, or perhaps those will be two separate announcements, one at the end of October and one at the end of November, and that's specific to China. So in terms of upcoming few weeks, I would say November, as I mentioned previously several times, similarly to August, will be a fairly tense month. Of course, we have presidential elections in the US, but regardless of that, we will just have sort of somewhat of a repeat of some of the same transits, and it will be another kind of a month, November, that is, of 2020, packed with strong kind of energies that may coincide with just increase of, again, we have potentially another wave, likely I think it will be the last wave of COVID, and again, earthquakes, disasters, restructuring of corporations, some shifting in terms of, again, who is at power in either financial institutions, governments, etc. So fairly significant month, and there may also be increased focus on topics like oil, gas, of course, pharmaceuticals that would relate to the whole COVID pandemic thing, but also Navy, water, beverages, pollution. Unfortunately, there's an increased probability of perhaps an accident that again has to do with pollution of water. It may be related to China because there is also strong emphasis on similar topics in the natal chart, in the transit that are occurring to the natal chart of China, but it could be pretty much anywhere globally. And also then for the US, specifically November 3rd through 16th, and especially November 9 and 10, may see increased focus on these same topics, oil, gas, but also maybe movies, music industry, and the prices or profits from these areas may go up. And it may also, the same period may also see increase in banks' assets or some increased news about real estate. And again, the prices may potentially go up. Then after that, for the US, period of, I would say, November 13th through December 10, and especially November 18th, 19th, and then December 3 through 10, may see increased focus on financial institutions, banks, and earnings, as well as loans, debt, taxes, rates, etc. And there may be some news about either new contracts or deals or rates or some negotiations with international partners, or perhaps tariffs, taxes, etc. And there may be some actually legal changes or some changes on how things operate, like which goods are allowed to be, sold, import-export, duties, or tax obligations or rates. So basically some sort of a legal, perhaps even constraints that may be imposed on import-export, and those restrictions may be imposed around 18th, 19th of November. By then, however, then by early December, these conditions may be lifted. So there may be some important developments, but there might be a change in basically first some sort of constraints, but then they are lifted by early December. Then globally, November, especially the 2nd and 3rd of November, is going to be quite an important month where, again, globally there will be focus on sort of shifts in the who is basically in charge, governmental kind of a restructuring or restructuring it that has to do with like large corporations, like basically CEOs either may be ousted, or there may be concerns, or there may be some changes in basically the how things operate, reorganization, and also there may be increased news about large-scale construction in terms of like the actual objects such as airports, dams, bridges, and there may also be significant shakeups at the tops, like I said, of corporations and or governments. And at the same time, these might most likely will be accompanied by increased violent protests, also fires, explosions, kind of increased maybe a wave of violence, unfortunately. There may also be increased news about corruption, scandals involving governmental or corporate officials, attacks on governmental or corporate leaders, and basically a lot of such instability. And at the same time, this period, 2nd, 3rd week of November, may coincide with significant kind of either top or bottom for the stock market, certainly probably greater than usual fluctuations, especially 13th plus minus few days may see a big change or reversal perhaps. So as of right now, I think it may be something like a big drop on the 13th, which is Friday, and then perhaps a big reversal to like a rally to up on the 16th. Could be the other way around, but I think from the 13th through 16th there may be a big change and big kind of a dramatic move in the stock market, and this may have to do with some announcement that may come over the weekend on the 14th and or 15th of November. Then sort of kind of looking a little bit further, November plus a few more months, I would say, there may be also for China, I guess, to mention specifically, November may again see either increase in floods or dealing with pollution, or some announcement that are significant related to healthcare, medical care, pharmaceuticals, and Also, there may be increased news both globally and for China regarding things like nuclear power, power plants, and radiation, recycling plants. So again, I'm not sure if these things are sort of related and something will occur in China, or there might be some announcement from something positive, like there's an announcement about the new invention that helps to like regenerate tissue or something like that. Something that was dead now can become, alive or regenerated. But it could also have to do with something that was buried underground and was thought to be basically out of the way, out of sight, may now come to the surface. It could be something that's, maybe there's a flood and something floats on top, or discovery, some archaeological, discovery, or literally there's an accident and some buried waste, perhaps nuclear waste, now it contaminates something and it needs to be dug out to basically clean that up. So it could be any of the above, but definitely globally and for China specifically, there's increased probability in November of either an accident or some serious situation that needs to be dealt with, or like I said, the positive manifestation could be an innovative way of dealing, say, with pollution or regenerating tissue or something along the lines of archaeological discovery. That could be another manifestation. Let's see. And for US, the entire period from, I guess, September through December may see important negotiations, not negotiations, but rather news about either financial manipulations or hidden money, illegal payments, corruption, bankruptcies. And this then may lead to some sort of regulations or increased scrutiny or regulations that have to do with either putting limits on how much money can exchange hands or within what time limit, and that kind of increased either scrutiny or literally a law that's put in place to, I guess, limit something may come and be put in place around November 6th through 9th. But then after that, and the banks may feel like something is limiting their ability to, I guess, improve their earnings or operate. However, this may potentially be then reversed, like I said, in early December. And at the same time, in November, for US, for banks or financial institutions, there may be some potential either talks or news or even decisions made about either restructuring some sort of operations or reducing the number of locations or reducing services or some other losses or cuts that perhaps are voluntary and either are a result of these restrictions that are imposed most likely by the government around November 6 to 9, or it just could be something that banks basically want to improve their earnings, and so they are voluntarily kind of restructuring and cutting down some of the expenses. And then finally, just two specific topics. One is this whole virus outbreak, and then oil. In terms of the coronavirus outbreak, a lot of the events kind of coincided with transits to the natal chart of China, and this November there will be this last major sort of transit to the areas that were coinciding with kind of waves of this pandemic, and this might be the last kind of a significant wave, but then either there will be more vaccines becoming available, perhaps even out of China right around November, and or some sort of a final decision is going to be made about whether things should be closed or not closed, or how things should operate. But past November and especially after December, I think both globally and especially for China, this will be more or less becoming kind of the thing of the past, and will not be affecting kind of activities as significantly as has been this year. And for oil, November through, let's say, February of 2021, yet again, there may be increased focus on either the value of oil, gas, and chemicals and related kind of products, but also there may be increased probability of either disaster, like oil leak leading to pollution, especially of water by oil, or there could be increased sort of fighting amongst the oil producing countries, or fighting over distribution or transportation. And At the same time, especially towards January of 2021, there may be increased kind of perhaps related concerns about, again, profits, earnings, currencies of businesses, especially like airlines, IT, and telecommunications. So obviously the price of oil, and airlines, etc., those would be affected. It kind of makes sense. In terms of the IT companies and telecommunications, I'm not sure what the connection would be, but there definitely could be, in parallel, concerns about like the prices of oil, some skirmishes or some arguments among countries that are oil producers, but also sudden bankruptcies or restructuring of companies, especially, again, airlines, IT, telecoms, into perhaps multiple smaller companies, or some basically major kind of changes, again, sudden bankruptcies, sudden restructuring, or sudden kind of announcements about debt, and associated market volatility, which will peak from early January, and especially I would say around January 18, 19 of 2021, there may be increased both news about oil and concerns about those areas, but also volatility in the stock market and concerns about some of the like companies, like I said, IT, telecoms, airlines, electric cars, etc. And even further, in April of 2021, there may be another time where, yet again, concerns about oil, gas, etc. may peak and may also be associated with a large market drop around April 8 and or 9. And then finally, looking really sort of further ahead, in September of 2021, so let's say especially September 1st through 3rd, yet again, there may be increased news about oil prices, either conflicts among countries that specifically produce oil or conflicts about oil prices, and that too may result in a large market drop around the 3rd of September 2021. So, like I said, the end of October looks like it's starting to get a little bit more tense, but then November definitely will be a month that will be one of the more tense months of this entire year, comparable to, I would say, August. So more governmental kind of restructuring, skirmishes, violent protests, and news about oil. So definitely something to keep in mind, and stay safe and not maybe travel to too many dangerous destinations if you can avoid that. And other than that, I hope you're having a good week and stay safe out there, and come back and watch this video next week. Until then, have a great week, everyone. Bye.